Hey everybody, good morning. This is Dust for Dust for Dawn Gaming. Finally getting around to playing that Dragon Ponza deck that Doyle Rules and I kind of worked on a little bit together. Those of you that haven't seen this deck before in some of our other videos, it's basically a Ponza deck with a Dragon top end rather than some of the other top ends of some of the decks I've been playing. Mainly this deck centered around building around Sarkhan Fireblood, a card that started to pick up a little bit in Modern from M19. Mostly it's been seen play in Mono Red Prison decks or Scred. I figured a deck that can get it out on turn 2 and then start slamming dragons on turn 3 is a pretty decent starting point. Obviously its abilities, rummaging, adding mana for dragons, and then an ultimate that leads to 4 or 5/5 dragons coming into play. Seems pretty good in Modern, especially if you can play it on 2. Chandra Torch of Defiance is kind of your backup card advantage engine slash way to deal with some creatures slash mana accelerator as well. And then your usual Ponza accelerator of Arbor Elf, Birds of Paradise, Utopia Sprawl. This deck especially takes advantage of the Arbor Elf Utopia Sprawl combo. 4 Lightning Bolts to deal with some problematic creatures, give you a little bit of reach, Scavenging Ooze as a little bit of life gain, creature combat, etc. Tireless Tracker as another great card advantage engine, gives you a good grinding element against mid-range and control decks. Bloodbraid Elf, once again, card advantage, can land you a Blood Moon, Tireless Tracker, a Sarkhan, or any of these other accelerator bolts. Blood Moon, obviously, kind of a staple of these Ponza mid-range land destruction decks. Kind of messes with the opponent's mana. Your deck's generally designed to take advantage of this effect, whereas most opponents usually struggle under a Blood Moon. Even something like Blue-White Control can struggle under a Blood Moon given certain draws. 2 Stormbreath Dragons, pretty good against the white-based decks like Control or Jeskai. Obviously, its Monstrosity ability is a nice thing to have as a mana sink. A couple Glory Bringers as well. These two differ in what they're trying to do. Stormbreath's great offensive threat, good against defending against white-based creature decks. Glory Bringer, kind of another removal on a stick, a little more vulnerable in the fact that it can be killed by Path to Exile, where Stormbreath cannot. And then 1 Dragon Lord of Tarka as your kind of pseudo Inferno Titan in the deck, gives you a big dragon to ramp into. And 8 Flying Tramplers close the game very quickly if your opponent doesn't have an answer. That said, this is more of a creature-heavy version of Ponza, not land destruction. We've got some more land destruction on the board. I tend to favor the creature-heavy builds, and to play alongside Blood Moon to kind of mess with your opponent a little bit, disrupt them some, give you time to close out the game with your mid-range threats. Sideboard, once again, Magic Online doing its wonderful rendition here. We have 2 Abrade, pretty good against when you need another spot removal spell, also good against artifacts. Couple Ancient Grudges, good against Affinity, Lantern Control, Ensnaring Bridge, etc. 4 Molten Raid when you need to disrupt your opponent's mana more, things like Tron, things like Valakut, things like Control. 3 Bonfire of the Damned against smaller creature decks. This deck is particularly vulnerable to fast aggressive decks because of the lack of life gain. So Bonfire of the Damned is kind of your pseudo sweeper that allows you to not take as much collateral damage as something like Anger of the Gods or something with your mana dorks. A couple Dragon Lord Dromoka is pretty good against control decks, being able to stop counter spells. Also generally pretty good against aggressive decks if you can land this. What's up, Space Marine? How you doing this morning? And then a couple Dampening Spheres for things like Storm, Tron, etc. Notably, Dampening Sphere does not interact with Utopia Sprawl, so this does not actually stop our own mana engine. Many people think it does, but what it does do is Utopia Sprawl actually provides the additional mana, not the land itself. So this doesn't really hurt us, and it helps stop things like Tron, things like Eldrazi Temple. Yeah, I left you a few messages. I liked where you were going with the deck. I just think the Mana Shuffler kind of really got us on a few occasions. That's the one thing about Moto is if you don't have the right balance of lands for what your deck's technically supposed to have, you kind of really get screwed. Like, I like where you were trying to go with the Teferi and all the 2-mana counter spells. That made a lot of sense. Um, and we were finding one more counterspell away from being Tron in game one. But to be fair, most of the matchups we played are not exactly the best matchups for hard control decks in Modern anyway. Like Ponza is usually a pretty rough matchup for them. All the hasty threats with Cavernous Souls out of the Eldrazi deck isn't the easiest. And obviously Tron is considered de facto one of Control's worst matchups. So I think it was good to play those tough matchups, but it still kind of sucked that we were, pretty close to stabilizing in a couple games and just didn't just get punked out by random dumb crap. Like that last game against Eldrazi when Eldrazi Obligator of all things killed us. But to be fair, Boulder Reality Smasher would have gotten us there too. But, yeah, I was gonna play that Tuesday, but I had some health issues. I'm having some nerve issues in my leg, so made it very uncomfortable to even sit, stand, walk, etc. So, yeah, I can see that working. So, we are on the draw with a bunch of 3-drops. Unfortunately, with no accelerator, I think we have to mulligan this hand. This hand isn't great, but we have an accelerator, so hopefully we'll find like a turn 2 or 3 play here. Against Tron, huh? Thunderbreak region's not bad, but it's not really great in this situation either. And Rev for 2 Glimmer. Yeah, I can see that. Oh, they're blue Tron. Okay. See what they go and grab here. Alright. See what our Bloodbraid Elf hits here. Two Logic Knot for 2 Essence Scatter? Huh. So they have Tron already, that's kind of rough. Presuming this is going to get condescended. Yeah, I don't honestly even know if Colonnade is even good in your build. You really don't honestly want to get all that offensive with your particular build of blue-white. Presuming we're just going to get Mindslaver locked here. Opponent's done absolutely nothing for all these turns. It's like, what could you possibly have in your hand? It's a large walking ballista? No. Emrakul the Promised End. Alrighty then. Alright. Well, we're not beating that, so... Alright, get this Dragon Lord of Tarka out of our thing. These damping spheres might be alright. Definitely want these Molten Rains. Definitely want these Dragon Lord Dromokas. Probably don't want these bolts. The question is what matchup would you want Celestial Colonnade in? Like, the only scenario where I could think you would want Celestial Colonnade is a situation in which your opponent resolves something like a Liliana of the Veil or something, or a Planeswalker that gets under your counterspells. That's like the only situation that I can see you might want a Colonnade, and even then you've got 2 D-Sphere and 3 Teferi to answer that in the main deck, and then Purge if it's a red or black Planeswalker in the sideboard, in addition to all your billions of counterspells. Just trying to think what else would I want to cut in this matchup. Thunderbreak probably isn't its best here. Is it just cut the Thunderbreaks? Yeah, it might be just cut the Thunderbreaks. Because they don't generally have a lot of spot removal in their deck. It gives us a lot of 3-drops, so... Alright, this hand seems pretty reasonable against what are... I guess. I mean, I don't know... It's kind of hard to say. What if our opponent runs Spell Snare? So this is going to be a pretty sick turn 2 play. Yeah, that's what I was saying. I don't know that your deck particularly wants... Ironically, our own wet ball almost cost us here. So if this start can't beat Tron, I don't know what can. You're going to Thought-Knot us this turn? Okay, friend, you get Neotopia Sprawl, sure. So our opponent's going to 1 here. We just get to kill them. Alright, so for those of you wondering what Ponza decks do on their nut draw, that's what Ponza decks do on their nut draw. That said, we're probably going to die a horrible screaming death here in Game 3. But turn 2 Chandra with Wet Ball, turn 3 Glorybringer. Can't really draw much better than that. Yeah, Space Marine, I really liked what your deck was doing. There was just those small details. It was just like, between the Magic Online Shuffler and some other stuff, it was just like, I don't know. Alright, so do we want something like Ancient Grudge or a Braid? Probably not. Bolts give us reach, but they really don't have a ton of things that's good against. Damping Sphere and Blood Moon are both pretty good against them as permanent based hate. Yeah. Don't really see any reason to change out what we're doing. This hand is extremely awkward. The question is, does Damping Sphere slow them down enough to make this hand worth keeping? Sure. The best thing to do is to send it to my email. I can take a look at it. Now, I think I'm gonna mulligan this one. This hand isn't a ton better, but put a Utopia Sprawl on top. See what our opponent does on 2 here. I'm just supposed to get a Damping Sphere down here. Possible, yes. Is there anything in particular? Alright, Space Marine, catch you later. Most of the $30 range decks are things like, I guess I was just supposed to Blood Braid Elf here. I need pressure on the table. Most of the $30-ish modern decks that are going to be reasonable are I can't even cast that because of our own damping sphere. You gonna condescend this? Yep. See, that gets tough because the best budget decks in Modern are usually things like budget elves, budget burn. See if they have another condescend here. Like elves, burn, or goblins are probably your best bet for a budget-ish deck, because you can usually play a mono-colored version of them. Repeal on Sarkhan, that's interesting. If you're afraid of him getting bored of repetitive games, elves is probably your best bet. Guess we slam Chandra here and hope. Odds that they don't have a counterspell are probably pretty low, though. Yep. Yeah, there are versions that play like. We'll take a look here in a minute as soon as this match is over. Spreading Seas is gonna hurt. We can't cast anything here, so we're just gonna pass. Like, if you look at most of the Elves deck, it's actually pretty cheap other than the land base. So. That's truly terrifying. So they're going to get to untap with all that mana next turn. Pretty much think we're dead there. Especially with that much mana. Yep. Alright, I mean, that's kind of Ponza. That was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Alright. TG Goldfish. Excuse me. Elvish Arch. Druid. So, alright, here's an example of a non-powered up elf deck that did pretty well. Obviously, this huge price tag here. The big things with this deck is the Heritage Druids and the Elvish Champions. But if you just look at a deck that had, okay, Elvish Mystic, not that expensive. Land of War Elves, obviously not that expensive. Nil Sentinel's fine. Dwayne Elite's fine. Most of the expense being put into Clan Caller and Elvish Archdruid. Imperious Perfect also. So this list, if you were to trim out the Heritage Druid, the Elvish Champion, and the Collected Company for just other random decent elves, you can play things like, let's see, what could we replace them with? Collected Company could be replaced by Lead the Stampede. You could replace Heritage Druid with Arbor Elf as just another one-mana accelerator. And then the Steel Leaf Champion? Why am I drawing a blank about how to spell that? Wouldn't think a card that sees so much play in Standard I'd have issues spelling. But, Steel Leaf Champion, how much is it running in paper? So you could run like a couple Steel Leaf Champion, and then the rest of your budget's pretty much in that kind of stuff. I'd have to work out an exact list, but I think a Elvish beatdown deck could be possible in the $30, $35 range. Let's see how much Uzuri is these days. Uzuri. I believe that's the right one. Might even be able to work in a couple copies of Uzuri. Yeah, I think Elves would be your best bet, because Burn, some people get really, really bored of Burn pretty quickly. So I think like a budget Elf deck. If you want to send me an email, I can try to like work out an exact like list within that budget right now. I'm obviously in the middle of the stream. I can't like just take the time to like completely scribble out and get an exact like $30 list. But if you want to drop me an email, Regroot, I can like give you like a approximately $30 list, or as close to $30 as I can. So, anyways, back to playing some Ponza. Hopefully, things get a little bit better here. Yeah, Janshevik's pretty good with some. Janshevik's pretty good with some budget stuff too, Regroot. So if you want to chat with him, guess I'd definitely like to play first. This hand's a little risky. I think we'll try it. Hopefully our Birds of Paradise sticks. Eldrazi, you say? Kind of hoping we're not getting punked out here. Ugh. Really? Turn 2 Thought Knot is just so annoying. I'm presuming they take Chandra here, as it's the card we're guaranteed being able to cast this turn. It took... wow. Alright. Presuming that means they have a Thought Knot to follow up and kill this. Not a Thought Knot, a Reality Smasher. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. So if they don't kill Chandra this turn, we can drop a Dragon Lord Atarka. I don't know how they're being in Dragon Lord Atarka. Yep, and they get to kill our Birds of Paradise here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I believe they shouldn't be disabled, Jankovic. Alright, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is this right? Add 2 mana, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. My question is how do you beat Dragon Lord Atarka, friend? I guess if they have Path to Exile, they could beat us here, potentially. What on earth could you possibly have here? Oh, Selfless Spirit, sure. They have Path to Exile, it could be in a little bit of trouble here. Much as they're thinking, that leads me to believe they don't. They're just going to Flicker Wisp my... Okay. I guess that's one way to kill a Chandra. Um. Okay. Alright, so our opponent's attacking our mana as best as they can. I still don't think they have an answer to this Dragon Lord Atarka, so... Yes, yes it is. Alright, so we're up against Eldrazi taxes. Huh. This is gonna be a weird game. Because most of our deck's actually pretty actively good against them. So... probably want a couple copies of a Braid. And... there's a good chance I want some number of Bonfire of the Damned. But the problem is, what am I cutting here? Because the rest of our deck's actually pretty good against them. And Dragon Lord Dramoka's a house. Just Thunderbreak region again? And then... maybe on the draw, trim like one Blood Moon. And... like a Tireless Tracker and some other random spell. Yeah, there are some cards that are just like weirdly expensive for what exactly they are. I mean, I sign me up for turn 2 Bloodbraid Elf if they don't have disruption that matters. Okay, turn 1 Ether Vial, sure. Ether Vial portion of this equation is a little unfortunate, but other than that, I think we're in pretty good shape this game. Hopefully they don't drop anything too broken this turn. Alright, let's go grab another forest here. Play Topia Sprawl. Red. All right, let's play a fun game of Magic, opponent. Who wins? All right, so I currently have access to 6, 7 mana here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Are the links not working? It's fine. For some reason, the links just aren't linking, which is weird. Alright, so... see what we hit off. Bloodbraid Elf here. Yeah, sure. Not the most exciting card ever, but... Well, Ponza is one of those decks that, when it's playing a fair game, it's kind of garbage. They have a Thalia here. A Core Firewalker. Wowzers. Alright, sure. Core Firewalker against a mostly... I guess they can Flicker Wisp for a turn to get that Blood Moon off the table. Or they're going to Flicker Wisp our land. Yep, Flicker Mist to get Blood Moon off the table. Which means they're probably going to use Wasteland Strangler to process it this turn. Which really sucks. I don't care about our opponent arbitrarily gaining a life here. This a Eldrazi Displacer. Alright. That's going to be obnoxious. Yeah. The problem, well, I guess I attack with. Hmm. Don't think I actually cast anything here. I want to be very careful about not exiling cards from my own graveyard until I absolutely have to. This particular list is my own. I forgot to crack a clue at the end of turn. O'Doyle and I kind of worked on it, but he went his own particular ways with certain cards. Alright, so their white spells are now unlocked. No, but the problem is, um, he now has access to Wasteland Strangler. Hello. Say hello to my little friend. No, I don't want to. I don't want to play Sark. Guess I should have played Sark on that turn. Do another path. That's unfortunate. Chandra, huh? Yeah, that would have been better. Though now it looks like our opponent's going to get to possibly kill Sarkon this turn. Hmm. It was an interesting attack on split on their attack here. The question is, what am I supposed to do with my Chandra here? No, I don't need to add mana to play Tracker here. And our opponent's already used 3 Path to Exile, so they can't have too many more of those left. Hmm. Hmm. Does nothing here, but at the same time, one of the awkwardnesses of that card. No, you can't pay the X, unfortunately. I'm just going to hang back on D, because as long as I have these Planeswalkers, I think I'm in an advantage position here. I guess they could have Strangler and kill one of our guys. Oh yeah. Yeah, Bonfire of the Damned would have just wrecked them here, so very interesting game. I think we'll go ahead and play one more match here. I think he's fine. I only played 2 of in this list. I know in his version of the list, O'Doyle played O'Doyle played 4. I just like Bonfire as the sideboard card, especially with only 2. I'm gonna laugh if we're playing the Ponza Mirror. No, it doesn't look like it. Oh, Bogles. Give our opponent some free tickets. Yeah. Sorry, for those of you that wondering why I just did that, I'm not interested in playing games of Magic in which there's really no games of Magic being played. Because, so, that matchup's going to go one of 3 ways. Either they're going to have their Bogle in 2 of the 3 games and overload it and kill us, or we're going to be able to, like, randomly screw them with Blood Moon or something, and it really doesn't make interesting games. Seriously? Looks like we're on the Ponza Mirror match. See, I don't like playing the land destruction version of Ponza simply because of nonsense like this. It just... the mirror match gets very obnoxious very quickly. Okay, maybe they're not Ponza. Is this doubling Moonwalkers? Yep, looks like doubling Moonwalkers. This is at least an interesting matchup, even if it's not going to be particularly interactive. my question is, what is better to get on the board here? So 1, 2, 3, 4. Can only make one true play this turn. Could go Chandra, kill their bird, which sets them back a mana. I think that's going to be the play. This is kind of who can mana denial the other one better. Because neither one of these decks interact a particular lot, so... 3, 4. Alright, which Planeswalker you got? Gideon? No, Tamiyo. Okay, that one could hurt a little bit. Yep, locking down our mana a little bit, which makes sense. This is where Chandra's new rules kind of hurt a little bit. Probably. But at the same time, she's still a pretty dang good Planeswalker. Alright, Birds of Paradise. Would like to find a way to kill that this turn if possible. Liliana of the Veil, huh? It's kind of a newer addition to stuff. Make me sacrifice a creature, huh? All that to keep your Tamiyo lockdown plan in place? Sure. Another Tireless Tracker. So 4, 5, 6, 7. I guess I could play... That said, if we get far enough ahead on board, we might be able to just deal with their Planeswalkers. We know they have a Johnny in hand as their last card, besides whatever this Oath of Nissa finds. So... an Arbor Elf, sure. Which means they're just going to pitch the Arbor Elf, which is whatever. See what we find here. This a World Waker. Alright. Alright, and they concede the game. Alright, so... Definitely want the Molten Rains. Bonfire is a consideration. Cards are not good in this matchup. Blood Moons are pretty garbage because they're doubling Moon Walkers. And a Braid might be okay. Yeah, a Braid might be okay just for killing their mana dorks. Problem is, what do we actually cut here? Cut like a Thunderbreak Regent and it can. The problem is, what are we cutting? Like, maybe we can cut the Abrades for Bonfires, because Bonfire is not horrible at cleaning up multiple mana dorks. But it still comes down to what are we cutting for these cards. Maybe one Molten Rain and... Can we cut one dork on the draw, or dorks on the draw might be more important? Oh well. 61 card special, YOLO. What's up, War Dog? How you doing? Had some weird matchups in these two-man queues today. Bluetron. Yeah, turn 2 Stone Rain, sign me up. Yeah, I bet it is. To Fairy. Oh, that's a bit of a scary one. So now we get to potentially do some messed up things next turn. I don't know that turn 2 Bloodbraid's going to be the best play here, though, is the thing. Because that breeding pool is looking like a very, very inviting target right now. So I think I'm just going to grab a Stomping Grounds here, in case they still have Blood Moon in their deck. I'm going to do red. Well, we're not playing Bloodbraid Elf this turn anyway, so... I'm enjoying the chance to set our opponent back 2 mana more than getting a Bloodbraid Elf into play and hope we flip a whatchamacallit. So 4, 5 mana here. I'm not scared to hit Bonfire. Seriously? Uh... Well, I've only ever played one league with Legacy Burn, so... Janshavik, you jinxed us, man. You jinxed us, Janshavik. You jinxed us. That said, Sarkin plus Bolt next turn is not a horrible turn, since our opponent doesn't have any accelerators currently. I almost feel bad for this. I'm supposed to feel bad for dissecting a fun deck, aren't I? I can work on it some more later, but I'm not gonna sit here and tell you I'm an expert on the format when I'm clearly not. I think I think burn is mostly standardized in Legacy. You only have like a few flex slots. It comes down to whether you want to play fetch lands and play Searing Blaze. Um, I've only looked at a few of the list, Jan, so I'm not really sure. Two, four, five. Alright, well, I mean, we're here to play some Dargans, right? Oh. Ah. Alright. So, thoughts on the list so far. Um, this deck is so silly and stupid. The deck obviously has very explosive draws. It has very meh draws. You saw that in the... They already had Teferi. It was just a matter of getting the mana. The problem is we still had... Even if they Teferi our Atarka, we still have Sarkhan in play. We still have a Tireless Tracker in hand. We still have a Bloodbraid Elf on the table. Yeah. When they don't see their namesake doubling season card into busted planeswalkers, their deck kind of just fizzles out a little bit. I've played the deck before. I have some idea what it's capable of. It's a fun deck, but it's not the most competitive if you don't draw like your turn 3 doubling season, like turn 4 cast an ultimate planeswalker kind of shenanigans. Thoughts on this deck? I mean, Ponza is Ponza. The draws you don't draw your mana accelerators in the business are pretty miserable. And then you have the draws like where we had turn 1 Arbor Elf, turn 2 Utopia Sprawl, Chandra, play Dampening Sphere against Tron, then play Glorybringer and go ham. So the thing about Ponza is you want to maximize your plays. It's a deck that's about getting ahead on mana and staying ahead on mana, or leveraging cards like Blood Moon, Molten Rain, Bloodbraid Elf to put your opponent under pressure on multiple axes and just trying to get them dead. The deck doesn't interact a ton. I mean, you have bolts, you have some form of creatures that kill stuff like the traditional lists run like Inferno, Titan, Chandra. We're running like Chandra, Glorybringer, a Lightning Bolt. So you have some interaction, but generally speaking, you just need to do Accelerator into 1, Broken Powered Thing on 3, Broken Powered Thing on 4, Broken Powered Thing on 5, and just kind of run your opponent down. Ponza's kind of summed up the best as Les Miserables. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. This is one of those decks that have some really polarizing draws, so it's fun to play on occasion. It's not fun to play against, especially when your opponent's on the land destruction version of the deck. Not much more to say about it than that. I mean, we lost to Tron doing, well, Blue Tron doing Blue Tron things. The game we won, we did our own busted thing. We beat Black White Eldrazi Taxes because we were kind of able to brown them a little bit. And I think on average our deck's more powerful than Eldrazi Taxes. We just scooped to Boggles because that's not a fun matchup to play against. And then our matchup against Doubling Moonwalkers, obviously we have the bigger board presence deck, so that's kind of what happened. So let me see if I can take a look at the Commander spoilers here. See if there's anything. Mythic spoiler. So this is my first time looking at some of these cards, so excuse me. Yeah, that looks like an interesting one. I don't think it's legacy playable, but it's definitely an interesting card. Crash of Rhino Beetles. Wow, that's a new one. Um, I'm not really seeing anything that's jumping out to me as legacy playable. Basically, it was a Ponza deck that was playing. It was a Ponza deck that was playing Sarkon Blood Speaker and Dragons, as opposed to the normal Ponza top end. So basically, you're a Blood Moon deck playing Dragons, and you have some land destruction spells on the sideboard. Ponza is a very loose term because it doesn't necessarily refer to just land destruction in the main deck anymore. But so this was the deck we were playing. This deck was using Sarkon Fireblood to ramp into like Thunderbolt Regent, Stormrot Dragon, Glorybringer, and Dragonlord Atarka. And you have the usual Ponza shell of the mana accelerators into Blood Moon plus Tireless Tracker and Bloodbraid Elf, which has kind of become the standard things for the Ponza deck. Hey, no problem. It was actually a lot of fun. It's hard to tell if it's good or not. It's kind of like Ponza. Ponza, sometimes you have the great draws, and sometimes it has the really, really poor, like, no accelerator, mulligan to 5 draws. So, I mean, if what you're doing is strong, it's great. If what you're not doing is strong, then you're kind of, just annoyed. But, alright, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the stream this afternoon. Well, early this afternoon. I'll probably be back later with some more streaming. Not sure what I'll be streaming yet, but wanted to play this list, been meaning to get to it over the last couple days, but had some other stuff to get to, had some other stuff come up. So, I want to thank everyone for hanging out. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any constructive comments for the deck, feel free to leave them in the comments below, or email them to me at mtgotavern@gmail.com. And beyond that, it's been fun hanging out this morning, and I will catch everybody later, hopefully.